really well. Some great advice for single Catholics is be who God meant for you to be. So in other words, seek his will, be who God meant for you to be, and you will set the world on fire.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. We were talking with Judy Keene on Jesus's divine mercy. Judy, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You as well. Thank
Bye. You are listening to Divine Mercy Radio's Spring Care-a-thon. Pray, hope, and don't worry. You're listening to 101.7 KJDM Lindsborg and Salina, 105.7 KMDG Hayes, 88.1 KRTT Great Bend, 88.1 KVDM Hayes, 89.1 KGOH Colby, and 107.3 K297AI Hill City. Thank you so very much for listening. We are on our Spring Care-a-thon. Pray, hope, and don't worry. In just a minute, we are going to get in here Lucrecia Nold, and so I'll get her introduced as soon as they come on in. Before we do that, I want to remind that we've got matching funds of $23,460. We've got a total Care-a-thon goal of $125,000. I support this station, and I would like to throw it out there as a challenge. If you're listening to me, if you're a friend of mine, a family member of mine, this is my challenge to you to join with me and supporting this station. I don't just say that because I'm a board member. I say that because this is pretty much the only station that I listen to when I'm in my vehicle, because it's about the only thing that's worth having on anyway. So if you want to get away from the stress and anxiety of the world, and you want to just have a little bit of peace, listen to some Catholic radio, but call into 785-621-4110 with your pledge. That's 785-621-4110. That's also the number that you call for these wonderful trivia questions. So these trivia questions, our assistant director, Michael, I think he comes up with them. So if they're really crazy, then you can yell at him. But also, I want to mention that the point in doing these trivia questions is that Jerome and Angela Schmeidler, who are the owners of our wonderful Catholic books and gift store here in Hayes, it's called Messenger. They give us these gift certificates to be able to then give to you guys if you win these trivia questions. And you can go down and pick something wonderful out from their store. We've got sacraments coming up, First Holy Communion, Confirmation. Go see them, even if you don't win this, and support them and thank them for supporting us. 785-621-4110. Here is your 8 a.m. trivia question. Which day of the week do Catholics worship Mary? Is it A, Sundays, B, Saturdays, C, we only worship God, or D, Fridays? This is a great question. Which day of the week do Catholics worship Mary? Is it A, Sundays, B, Saturdays, C, we only worship God, or D, Fridays? Call 785-621-4110. We ought to have those phone lines should have been ringing before I even got that question out, because they're probably like, what are you talking about? I think that's a pretty good clue. 785-621-4110. All right. We have Lucrecia Nold. I am going to make sure that I got her mic turned on. There we go. Oh, sure. All right. So I've never got to meet you before. It's wonderful having you in here.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Awesome. I'm going to see if I can get through this. This is an awesome introduction. So Lucrecia is the public policy specialist for the Kansas Catholic Conference, which serves as the public policy voice of the 4 Catholic bishops of Kansas. That is awesome. The work of the KCC is primarily focused on state-level legislation, but the office also engages our federal lawmakers in Washington, D.C. Lucrecia's educational and business background shifted dramatically in 2021 when she was named as campaign manager for a friend running for mayor of Topeka. This introduction and baptism by fire to the political process led her to her interviewing for and eventually being named as the public policy specialist for the Kansas Catholic Conference. So Lucrecia was intimately involved in the 2022 Value Them Both statewide campaign. I still have that sticker because I like to just leave it there. And has been a key part of passing successful legislation such as fairness in women's sports. Oh my goodness. Thank you so very much for that.
You're very welcome.
Also, Help Not Harm and many pro-life related bills. A native of Kansas, Lucrecia spends much of her free time teaching religious education, playing softball, shopping, traveling, and hanging out with family and friends. My goodness, what do you not do? That might be a shorter list. But this is awesome because I really didn't know anything about the Kansas Catholic Conference and this wonderful topic we're going to be talking about bridging faith and governance and stuff like that. And so that is absolutely wonderful. If you could get us started off maybe talking a little bit more about your background, how you became involved a little bit more in public policy and particularly within the context of Catholic social teaching, because I think a lot of people misunderstand what that even means.
Of course. Yeah. So to be honest, I didn't even know what the Kansas Catholic Conference was until I got,
not the only one.
Yes, until I got asked to interview for the position. A little bit of the background you did describe there in the introduction, but a little bit more background. I honestly don't have much of a political background. You find many people, they have a political science major, they're maybe attorneys. They come from backgrounds related to that. I don't have any such background, to be honest. I have a fashion marketing degree actually from K-State.
Okay.
But I happened to be in a job that I was feeling very unfulfilled in and was willing and open to try something new. And that led me to managing my friend's mayoral campaign there in Topeka. I did have an interest in politics, just of, not super nerdy in politics, but at least staying relevant and up to date on things. And my friend decided to run for mayor. He and his wife asked if I would manage the campaign. And so that just started dabbling into understanding the political process. It allowed me to meet individuals who do work in the state capitol. And from that, then at one point, this position opened up, and one of my friends who I'd met through the mayoral campaign process just called me up and said, "Hey, this job is open. We need to fill it ASAP. I think you'd be really good at it." And just briefly described. And really all I got out of that conversation was I'd get to work for the Catholic Church and I'd get to work on things that I felt passionate about, particularly like the pro-life movement. And so more or less, I blindly said yes.
That's awesome.
And he got me connected to our director, Chuck Weber, and Chuck contacted me, and within a week, he hired me. So, and it's been a crazy and wonderful experience that I tell people. I was just telling a friend last night that if I would have seen this in a help wanted ad, I would have said, no way, I'm not qualified. But no, it's been great.
That is awesome. So yeah, when your introduction said really a baptism by fire, I mean, that really was. Okay, well, let's do this. And I also have the blessing for working for the church, and so you're right. That is such a wonderful thing that God can do and say, you know what? Not only do I want you being involved in your faith in special ways, I want you to work specifically for my church. And it's such a wonderful blessing to be able to do that. So we thank you so very much for your role in that, and
welcome.
really, really appreciate that. We are talking with Lucrecia Nold about the Catholic perspective on policy making and bridging the faith and governance. I want to remind everybody that you're listening to the Spring Care-a-thon, Pray, Hope, and Don't Worry. Also, I was sending messages back and forth with my team out there, and I believe we are on Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. So I'm going to wave at the camera and hope that it doesn't break when I turn my beautiful face toward it. But luckily, we have better guests in here. And so maybe you want to see them. I kind of like hearing someone on the radio and being like, I wonder what they look like. Go check us out on Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. And you can also go back on our YouTube page later on and watch these videos as they get posted. But I want to remind people of our 8 a.m. trivia question, because I don't think we got a winner yet. And this should be an automatic. Everybody should be like screaming, what are you talking about? Okay, so question. Call into 785-621-4110. And that question was, which day of the week do Catholics worship Mary? Is it A, Sunday, B, Saturdays, C, we only worship God. Or D, Fridays. Which day of the week do Catholics worship Mary? A, Sundays, B, Saturdays, C, we only worship God, or D, Fridays. Everybody should know that immediately. Call 785-621-4110. We will get you put into that drawing later for the gift certificate to Messenger, Traditional Catholic Books and Gifts. As we are on our pledge drive, we are asking you to partner with us because we are completely listener funded, 100% from you guys. We don't receive government funds or anything, which is really good because they can't tell us what to do. And so we get to just talk about the message of Christ. And we are doing that right now with Lucrecia Nold. We're going to get right back with her, but call 785-621-4110 with your pledges and help us to keep these wonderful radio waves going. All right. Back to talking with Miss Nold here about bridging the faith and governance. So we talked about your background a little bit, but I want to get into then specific policy areas that maybe you're focused on, that you've been focused on throughout your career, and how they, obviously, since you're working for the Kansas Catholic Conference, then they're going to relate to the Catholic faith. But if you want to speak about some of those things you are working on and have worked on.
Yes, of course. So I think probably the biggest thing that I've worked on more or less my entire life, and then especially now in this role with the Catholic Conference, is the pro-life agenda and the movement. And that is our number one priority in our office. It is the number one priority of the bishops of Kansas. And that really takes precedent of everything because, without life, you have nothing else. And so it's just working on policies at the moment that are life affirming, because obviously we as Catholics realize that life is valuable and has dignity from the moment of conception till natural death. And so trying to find the areas in the policy world where we can connect that Catholic teaching to in order to help educate people, because to some individuals, politics is people's religion, and they will see something that is like, well, this is law. Roe v. Wade is a great example of that. People just assume, well, if this is law, then it must be okay. And so it's just trying to help educate people as well. It's like, this is the teaching of the Catholic Church, of that life has dignity and value, and knowing that there is a room in the policy world, because it does help educate people and it makes a difference on their own belief system as well.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that you brought up, was conception to natural death. And that's really important because for a long time, people were trying to accuse the Catholic Church or the pro-life movement of just being pro-birth movement, and there are so many pro-life issues. Obviously, I think one of the reasons we focus on abortion so much is because it's so horrendous. And like you said, if you don't have life, you don't have anything else. And babies are the most vulnerable among us. So we have to protect it at its most precious stages first. But also, can you tell us about other things that you've worked on? I mean, the value of them both was, well, guess what? Mom and baby. So we want to help moms too. And I know that our Catholic community is very good at that, like Catholic Charities. What are some other things maybe that involve people in other stages of life that you've been able to work with or help with bills or anything else?
Yeah, great question. So again, on the life side, you pointed out that so many times we have been categorized as pro-lifers, just only care about the baby within the womb, and that's it. That's obviously not the case. We care about the child outside the womb and all throughout all stages of life. And one of the bills we just passed this session, so actually less than a month ago, because session just wrapped up April 11th, I think is when it was, somewhere around there. So less than a month, and was a child support bill of recognizing that ideally, yes, in a perfect world, you would have a two-parent household, mother and father, but we live in a broken world, and that's not always the case. And you often then have mothers who are abandoned by a child's father, and they're left with supporting that child kind of on their own.
Yeah.
They may not get child support. And often that child support does only happen when the child is maybe born. Well, we decided, hey, there's pregnancy related expenses that happen, and that father needs to take responsibility during those 9 months. He has a responsibility to take care of mother and child from the very beginning. So we got a bill passed that would allow judges to make that a consideration for child support from the moment of conception.
That's awesome.
Which is great. We also allowed for child support to be considered being taken out of retirement funds as well. Because you were finding out maybe individuals are saying, hey, I don't have a job, so I can't pay child support, but they had a nice cushy, 401k sitting there for their future. And it's like, yes, your child's present moment takes priority over your cushiness and well-being in the future. So that was part of that bill as well, of ensuring that you can take payments from a retirement account. And a fun little thing that also somehow got worked in was a sales tax exemption for families who have children. Once they give birth, they're given an extra sales tax exemption. So that would be one little thing. Another aspect would be looking at the foster care and the adoption area. We helped get a bill passed as well that ensured that families who are wanting to foster and wanting to adopt aren't discriminated against because of their Christian morals and beliefs.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that recently, even in the news, it's disheartening because you see over in Colorado, there are just some nasty things happening, trying to take parents' rights away if you don't adhere to your child's so-called desires of changing your sex, and stuff like that. And I'm just like looking at this world, like what is going on? And so I love that you're fighting back within the law and saying, no, this is what is important. What is important is the health and well-being of the child, the health and well-being of the mother. And how can we do that? And also, how can we get the family structure back together the way that it should be in a healthy environment? So that's awesome that you are doing that. We are talking with Lucrecia Nold about Catholic perspectives on policy making, bridging faith and governance. I want to congratulate and thank Anita Hrenik from Colby. She is our trivia winner. The question was, which day of the week do Catholics worship Mary? We don't, folks. We don't. And that has been, one of those things that people often throw out there. And as a convert, I know that I used to kind of have that thought also. And then you understand, wait, no, this is the Mother of God. She did some very important things. And so we obviously honor that and honor her for that, but we don't worship her. We only worship God. So that was a correct answer. 785-621-4110. But I also want to thank Anita because her corporation, which is called Her Endeavor, is donating $2,500. That's $2,500, which just became then $5,000 if I can do my math quickly. I know it's the morning, but I have had a cup of coffee, and that was a pretty easy one. Thank you so very much, Anita, and for your corporation for donating that $2,500 with our matching funds. That became $5,000. We started out this morning with $23,460. And so we've cut some of those down. We also have, as I'm speaking, the Knights of Columbus Council 1867 in Victoria is donating $750 and is challenging, I love these challenges, challenging other Knights of Columbus councils to donate. I know that my council from St. Nick's, we're going to be donating because at our last meeting, we said we would be doing that. So we're going to meet that challenge and we're going to donate also. So other Knights of Columbus councils out there, if you're hearing this, join with St. Nicholas Council, join with Victoria Council, who threw out that challenge and said, hey, let's do it. 785-621-4110. Let's see if we can get our matching funds used up in day one. That would be awesome. Those matching funds, when you call in, your donation gets doubled immediately. 785-621-4110. But without further ado, I want to get back to speaking with Lucrecia Nold We're talking about her role with the Kansas Catholic Conference, how she works with policy, making public policy, governance, bridging our faith with that. And that's kind of the question that I want to get back to then is, you work for the Kansas Catholic Conference, so it's easy for you there to have your Catholic values, but you're also working with bills in the secular world. So how do you kind of integrate and bridge that gap of using Catholic morals, Catholic principles in making public policy?
Yeah, and it's not always an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
My director, Chuck, many people listening probably know Chuck Weber. One of the things he likes to say is we do the Lord's work on the devil's playground.
Yeah.
And that's one of the first and foremost things is, unfortunately, there in the State House, it is a spiritual battle and it can become very obvious. And so trying to teach and present our Catholic morals and values is not always easy. But thankfully at this moment, and every legislative session I have partaken in, we have had a very strong legislature that is very faithful, and they're, not all Catholics, but strong Christians that do believe in many of the, things that we value and that we teach, such as, the life issue, or ensuring that there's two genders, just male and female, basic biology, but basic, what God has given us, what is biblical. And that definitely will help in putting forth legislation, because we have individuals in the Capitol who are in line with us and are willing to also fight for those values and morals as well.
That's awesome. I want to just throw out a thank you and also just some other information. When you said Chuck Weber, I was like, I know that this guy is involved in the Knights of Columbus. So I looked it up really quickly just to make, but yes, he is a knight himself. And the reason why I want to look that up is because we just had Victoria Knights throw out that challenge. Hey, go and donate. And so, yeah, Chuck is big into that, and want to thank him for that. But also, we've got Barb Wassinger, our representative, sitting out here in the waiting room, and so you probably get to work very closely with her, which is awesome because she is such a strong voice. And so I want to throw out a thank you to all those people who are out there, people like yourself, people that you work with. Thank you so much, because that is, as you said, doing God's work on the devil's playground, as Chuck would say. Absolutely. That's got to be really tough sometimes to know, like, I'm kind of going into the lion's den here. I've got to have thick skin. I've got to really trust in the Lord. And that goes back to our first interview we had with Judy Keene, talking about divine mercy, full trust in the Lord. How do you have other ways where you're like, this is how I have to put my faith out there and just say, hey, I've got to back out and not worry about what other people think, what other people say, but just let the Lord give me some courage in this moment.
Correct. And you kind of touched a little bit of saying how it can be very much like walking into the lion's den, and that cannot be more true in certain situations, especially with some of the more contentious bills that we have had, not only life-related bills, but more specifically the past couple of years on the gender-related bills that we have had, whether it's been fairness in women's sports, or this year with help not harm, and a few other bills in that category, where you walk into the room for a committee hearing and it is a room packed full of opposition. It's packed full of individuals who are on the opposing side. These are individuals who do think that a biological male can be a female and vice versa. And it can be very intimidating. I'm not going to lie about that. But over the years, I've learned that, one, just being firm in your faith can make a huge difference. We know that, the battle's already been won. We already know how it all plays out. So that always gives comfort. And then also what's always comforting is, Jesus said that, if the world hates you, remember they hated me first. And so that's always something that I can take consolation in, especially, like I said, when there is a room full of opposition, or even in certain circumstances like what happened this year when one of those individuals actually found me in the hallway and just verbally started to attack me out in the hallway.
Oh, wow.
Because they didn't like what I was doing and what I was standing for. So it's just, having trust in the Lord and knowing that you are doing the right thing and remembering that, yes, the world did. If they hate me, they hated Jesus first, and I'm going down the right path. So
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is kind of like a nice little Christian badge that we can wear. And I don't think we think about that enough. That one piece of scripture is so important, because if you can remember that and be like, oh, wait a minute, the world, the spirit of the age, is vehemently opposed to me. I must be doing something right. I mean, if you're doing the work of God, and so like, all right, I'm gonna wait, rather than shying away and be like, oh man, people are really upset about this. Instead, I mean, you can just say, okay, this means that I'm doing what the Lord wants me to do, because Satan is very angry about it.
Oh, yes.
So I'm going to keep pushing forward. But I want to go back really quickly also and ask you, you had mentioned a bill, Help Not Harm. I actually don't know anything about that. Can you give me a little insight, and our listeners also, what is that one about?
Yeah, so that was in our world, SB 63, Help Not Harm. It took us 3 years, I believe, to actually get it all the way through across the finish line, because the first 2 years, the governor had vetoed the bill, and we didn't have enough votes to override the governor's veto. This year, we not only got it to the governor's desk, she unfortunately vetoed it, but we did have the votes in the legislature to override her veto. Thanks be to God on that. But it is to protect minors, to protect children from the gender transition environment. So it is saying that if you are a child, if you are a minor, you cannot receive gender transition surgeries, and you cannot receive gender transition chemical medication to help alter your body and your hormones for the purposes of, transitioning. So that was a big win in protecting our children and our families here in the state of Kansas.
That is so awesome. And thank you so much for that. So many people don't even understand the science behind it. I mean, it's not difficult. I've got a 5-year-old that can figure it out, and so that's pretty easy to understand for most of us, but the world out there is so confused. And so for you guys that had to be such a huge fight. I mean, thank you so much for doing that. But also just because, that if you look into the real science of it, it completely debunks one of their famous tropes of, well, if you don't do this for the child, they're going to commit suicide. And we find out that 10 years down the road, if you have given them this, that the rates jump up astronomically again. And so it's so important to the health of our young people that we get them the help they needed, because there's also a lot of, in many of these children, there's a lot of underlying issues, like autism and depression and other things that is causing this. Whereas if we would treat what is the actual cause, we would then get to the core of it. And so you guys have done something so important there. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Oh,
Yeah,
man,
it was
that's
an honor,
awesome.
but it was definitely a team effort. It was us, several other lobbying groups that were heavily involved with it. And then obviously the support of our legislators, because they were the ones that were able to successfully override the governor's veto to get it into law. So that was, it was a team effort.
That is awesome. We are listening to Lucrecia Nold speak to us about the Catholic perspectives on policy making, and that is bridging faith and governance. You're listening to Divine Mercy Radio Spring Care-a-thon. Pray, hope, and don't worry. If you would like to call in like Karen Threlkel just did, such a wonderful lady in our community. Thank you, Karen. She donated $100, and with our matching funds, that becomes $200. You obviously you guys have been giving me easy ones, helping, breaking it out. You could call in with something crazy if you really want to show how bad I am at math. But that would be great. Call in with a $1,432.33 or something like that. Whatever you want to give, call in to 785-621-4110. We are completely listener funded. So if you're listening to us right now, maybe you're one of those people that donates to the station. Maybe you're one of our underwriters who we appreciate so much, or maybe you're someone out there that is just listening for the first time or has listened for a long time but hasn't donated. I would ask that you prayerfully consider joining with us, because we then become partners in the gospel message of Christ. 785-621-4110. We're going to get back to speaking with Lucrecia Nold, and then I will get to a trivia question here in just a little bit. Stay tuned. All right. Coming back to speaking about what we were talking about, there are obviously Catholic views on abortion, and I wouldn't say just views, because that makes it sound like, well, it's your opinion against mine. But there's Catholic truths on issues like abortion, marriage, and stuff like that, and they obviously differ from a lot of mainstream policy positions. We've talked some about that already. Are there other things you wanted to mention about tensions between church teaching and public policy and how you try to bridge that?
Yeah, so I think what happens a lot is in the world of trying to bring Catholic teaching and morality into the state house, into the public policy world, is you can obviously get met with a lot of opposition, and that includes opposition from some of your legislators as well. But a key thing is just building relationships with these people. And there are individuals I have relationships with in the Capitol who are, state representatives, state senators, who they rarely, if ever, vote with us on these topics that I've mentioned, or even some other topics, but I have great relationships with them, having conversations with them in the hallway. So that's a huge part of building relationships, having a mutual respect for each other, and they know exactly where I stand, because, and that's important, because there are things down the road that they might actually do support, and they do eventually line up with our Catholic faith and our teaching. And they know then that they can come to me and say, hey, I would like to get X, Y, and Z done. Are you interested? Can you help me out? And that's like, yes, we're able to help you. And so they might not on some of these bigger issues always align with us, but having a relationship with them allows us then on other items to work together, which is important. And I always feel like at the end of the day, too, of just trying to be Christ-like to them as well is always really, really important, because you never know what conversion that could bring to them.
Such a great message, because we have to distinguish between respecting someone for being a child of God and respecting their opinion. And we don't have to respect everybody's choices in life. So, that's one thing that sometimes people have a hard thing understanding is, we have to love every person, but love means to desire the good of the other and work toward it. And so when you're speaking about that, you're really speaking about exactly what Christ would do. Let's walk with them in this moment, but yet show them the truth. And so, you can stick to your guns without being a nasty person.
Correct. Yes. And, it kind of reminds me of one of the legislators I do have a good relationship with. Again, this individual probably votes 99% of the time, does not vote with us. But there was a vote earlier this year on something. And again, they voted against us on it. But when they saw me in the hallway, they go, "You're not mad at me, are you? You don't hate me, do you?" And I was like, "No, I don't hate you at all. Now, do I disagree with how you voted? Yes, but I don't hate you." And they were like, "Oh, okay, thank you so much. I was so concerned." And we started just having this conversation. And again, they brought it up, like, "And you're not mad at me. You don't hate me." And I was like, "No, I'm not, I don't hate you at all." And you could just see this like sigh of relief that they were afraid that because they voted against me, I was going to, in essence, turn my back on them. And that's not the case, because I do see the good in them. I do see the good heart that they have. And we were able to go on and have this great actual theological conversation about our faith journeys and biblical teachings. And so you just never know what type of conversations you're going to have with people, and where they come from as well, and their perspective on things. So that's always important when you're building relationships in the State House.
Wow. We are listening with we're speaking with Lucrecia Nold on the Catholic perspective on policy making. I want to get to our second trivia question really quickly. I hate to have to break in here, but it's for a good reason. So our trivia question that if you call in here, if you get it correct, you can even call in and just take a stab at it if you're not sure, but call into 785-621-4110. We will get you put into the drawing for the gift certificate later today from Messenger Traditional Catholic Books and Gifts, if you get this correct. So call 785-621-4110. What does MDG in KMDG stand for? Is it A, merit, dignity, and grace? Is it B, Mother of Divine Grace? Is it C, moving deeper in God? Or is it D, music drives gratitude? What does MDG in, and so this, if you didn't catch on there, this is our call sign for Hayes here. And so what does MDG and KMDG stand for? Is it A, merit, dignity, and grace? B, Mother of Divine Grace? C, moving deeper in God? Or D, music drives gratitude? Call 785-621-4110 for your answer, for your pledge, or for both. You can do both at the same time. And so if you call into that number, please let us know how we're doing. Give us some feedback. Thank the guests that we have on here, and we thank you for joining with us in keeping the gospel message going. All right, we want to get back to speaking with Lucrecia Nold. So Lucrecia, is when you're working with other people, something that I'm kind of curious about is, and especially as you were talking about relationship building, do you find that, and I'm sure there's some of both, but do you find that most people are just that hard-headed? Or is it that they don't really understand the Catholic view? When you're trying to, gain traction with these people, is it that they just are unwilling to listen? Or is that they've never really been approached or had a relationship with somebody that was willing to speak to them before?
I think it's a little bit of both. And you do have individuals who are just extremely hard-headed, and they're not willing to have those conversations. They're not open to engaging in those conversations. They have their viewpoint and belief, and that is that. They don't want to hear anything else. And then there are the individuals that, okay, I don't agree with they don't agree with the Catholic Church and the teachings, but they're willing to listen to me and listen to our arguments and our insight and teachings. As I said, this is where we're coming from the Catholic perspective, and they are able to listen with. Now, a lot of the times, unfortunately, regardless of if they're already just against us on something, they're not going to change their mind, unfortunately, especially on these issues such as the gender issue or the pro-life issue. But it is nice that there are individuals who are open enough to engage in that dialogue and that conversation and understanding better the teachings of the Catholic Church. Because again, you just never know how that conversation is going to unfold and open up for their own conversion in the future.
No, thank you for that. Breaking in really quickly, Laura Schwartz is our trivia winner. She is from Colby. The correct answer is, or the question was, what does MDG in KMDG stand for? And it is Mother of Divine Grace. So we will get you put into that drawing, Laura. And thank you so very much for listening. Thank you for calling in, listening to Divine Mercy Radio, Spring Care-a-thon. Pray, hope, and don't worry. Call with your pledges to 785-621-4110. And let's see how many of our funds we can get used up today. We had some big donors. We had some $100, some 50, $2,500. So we've got donors all over the board. No matter what you can give, call 785-621-4110. Let's get those phones ringing and going. All right. Getting back to Lucrecia, as we've been speaking about, the difficulties in bridging this gap with people who just are vehemently opposed to it, whether that is through ignorance or through, I guess ignorance, one of the both ways, either vincible or invincible, either because of their own fault that they just didn't, or because maybe they just didn't know. You are bridging that gap. You're making those relationships. How do we engage more fully then, even for people like us in the regular sphere, maybe not in public policy, with those people on contentious issues?
I just want to clarify just how more of the laity can engage, their family, friends on an everyday basis.
Yeah, because you have to deal with it with, like we said earlier, you're stepping into the lion's den, so like you really do have to step into it because you're also then the face out there trying to help make public policy. For us, a lot of us, we're not really making public policy, but we still need to change hearts. And so you kind of have a background in both worlds there. Can you give us some insight into that as to, how do we build those relationships better? How do we walk into situations with contentious issues and not shy away, not be like, oh, somebody I just realized does not hold the same opinion of me. And so since I think this is going to be a difficult situation, I'm just not going to say anything. I'm not going to do anything. How do we navigate those waters?
Personally, I think the best way to navigate that is first and foremost, build a relationship with these individuals. You can't just go in and only know somebody more at surface level and saying, hey, what you're doing is against Catholic teaching and what you're doing is morally wrong. Because they're just going to completely shut down and be like, who are you? How dare you? You don't know me. And so getting to know people from not just from a surface level, but like authentically getting to know people, understanding where they come from, their background, their life, their situations that they've been in. Because and genuinely caring for people too, asking how their day is and asking how their family is, how can I pray for you, and building that relationship. So when if you do come to those obstacles in the road of where they're potentially supporting something that is morally wrong, you have a relationship with them that you're like, that, okay, I can freely speak and they're not just, or they shouldn't just brush me off because they're like, you don't know me. They can be like, oh, well, this person does know me. They have been living life with me. I do respect them. I will at least hear what they have to say. And also just making sure you do it in a calm and loving way and not in a tone or a manner that's demeaning and saying, no pointing fingers of like, you're wrong about this and you're gonna pay for this. And no, that's not how you come about it. You just say like, help me understand where you're coming from. Why do you believe that X, Y, and Z is okay? Because Christ did not teach that. And so I want to understand why you think this is okay. So asking the appropriate questions in a loving way. And yeah, I would say that's definitely the biggest. And if they still disagree with you, let them know that you're still going to be friends with them. You're not going to turn their back on them, because then hopefully you can be a good witness to Christ and they can continue to see how you live out your life. And eventually, we pray and hope that the light bulb does turn on, and then they can see the light and make adjustments. But just not condemning people, meeting them where they're at. And if they ask questions and you don't know the answer, don't make up an answer. Be honest and say, I don't know, but I'm happy to find out for you. And then go do go do some research. There's plenty of resources out there. And online Catholic Answers is really great. We even use Catholic Answers in our own office when we don't know things. Go to your priest. So don't act like you know everything and have all the answers. Just be honest with them if you don't know the answer to one of their questions, and say, I'm willing to find out, or let's go find out together, and go on that faith journey together.
Absolutely. Well, as you were speaking, it brought up into my mind the Christ talking about the speck and the log. And so that doesn't mean that we shouldn't correct people. I think people get that wrong, and they're like, "Oh, if I have a log in my eye, then who am I to judge? I shouldn't say anything on anything," because they get that wrong also. But that just really means if you have your own moral house in order first, people are, like you said, people are then more likely to hear you out. They may not at the end of the day agree with you, but at least if they're like, well, this person seems to be living their life right, maybe I could at least hear them out. And that's an important thing, because hearts have been changed that way. I'm not saying that I'm not sure how you would befriend a Satanist, but like what just happened recently, one thing that did impress me about the Catholic response to that was the Catholic world was like, we need to pray for these people.
Yes.
And that was so important. A priest around here during a homily said, you know what, we're not fighting these people, we're fighting Satan. And that's important to understand. It's not that these people aren't wrong and that they're not doing horrible things, but that they have fallen under the lies of the evil one and given into him. And so it's him first and foremost that we are fighting. And so if we can change the hearts of those people, then we have helped Jesus to win a soul, and we've won against Satan. I mean, it's a win-win, and
Absolutely.
So thank you so very much for bringing that up, because that's important for us to understand when we're talking about that relationship building. So moving on just a little bit, you've already talked about some of the bills that you guys have been involved in. Can you give us some more insight into bills that you guys have worked with the state legislature, both ones that have failed and ones that have succeeded?
Yeah, so I already talked about Help Not Harm, which was a big win this year for us. And another win that we had the other year was the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, which, just for anybody who doesn't know, it's saying that biological men are not allowed to play in all-female sports.
Good.
Common sense for most of us, but unfortunately not for all. But getting that passed and into law was a big win for us. And we've had, then I think I also talked about the child support that we passed earlier this year, the Adoption Conscience Protections Act of protecting parents who are wanting to foster and adopt, allowing them the religious protection that if they do have strong moral and Christian beliefs, that they're not discriminated against from the adoption and foster process. So those were some big wins this year. Another win that was last year, I believe, was the Born Alive Infant Protections Act, which just simply stated that if a child is born alive, regardless of the intent of the delivery, they are to receive proper medical care, regardless of, for whatever the gestational age is for that child. Because unfortunately, we were finding of children being born that were not supposed to be born. The intent of delivery was for a dead baby, unfortunately, and they beat all the odds and came out alive and stunned the doctors and the nurses in the room, and then they just left the baby to die on a back in the corner on a steel cold table, and that's obviously not morally right, and for multiple reasons. So the Born Alive Protections Act of saying regardless of how a child is born, they deserve proper medical care and treatment. Well, that was a big win in the pro-life world. We also got what's a fetal development video passed. So it will require the public schools to show in their human development classes and their sexual education classes at least a 3-minute video that includes a sonogram of the development of a child.
That is so awesome.
From the moment of conception, through birth. So just, again, simple education, but it does make a big impact. We got that done. And another big thing would just be providing support to our pregnancy resource centers and our maternity homes, because in the pro-life world, we realize that those who are helping and volunteering at the pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes are, in essence, on the front line of a lot of the pro-life movement. And we wanted to figure out a way to how can we help them do their jobs to the best of their ability. And last year, we created a big tax package for them that allows for a 75% tax credit for those who donate to pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes. So if you're not already donating to pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes, please do, and you can get a 75% tax credit for doing so, and also allowing them to be sales tax exempt. Before, these PRCs were having to pay taxes on the diapers, formula, the car seats, all these material items that they were needing to purchase to help these mothers in need. And we got them into sales tax exemption status. And I know one of the PRCs, she's like, yeah, this is already saving me $10,000.
Wow.
So imagine how much more she can help,
Yeah.
women and families in unplanned pregnancies with that extra money. And then we created a program which is called the Pregnancy Compassion Act that is a form of grant funding through our state general funds that pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes can tap into and get to as additional financial sources to help the women and families that they are serving. And the past couple of years, the legislator has approved $2 million for this program. And then this year, our legislators realized how great the program was working and the wonderful work that our pregnancy resource centers do. And they increased it to $3 million. So that was a big win. But in all these wins, there's obviously also losses that we encounter. And biggest loss, I think, just overall would be the loss of value of them both. That definitely made a drastic change in how we even approach public policy on the life issues. And so that was definitely a big loss. Another thing that we're still working towards that we have been unsuccessful with this year, a couple, is just school choice. Because,
That's awesome.
we recognize that parents are the first and primary educators of children, and we need to make it accessible for them to easily choose the best form of education for their child. So that's something that we have gained little to no traction on, but we're slowly trying to, move forward on that.
And those are all wonderful things. And I didn't know about all those. And so it's such a blessing to have you here and letting our listening audience know, especially some of those wins, because a lot of times it does feel like, are we doing anything? Is it, but those are some really big wins. So for us then, as just the regular people out here, how do we help you guys? How do we get behind things that you guys are doing so that we can get more of these wins? Because there's some good traction going right now. And as you said, we do have the numbers to, if our governor keeps wanting to shut down good pro-life bills, luckily we have the numbers in cases to say, you know what, no, this is going to go through because this is so important. So how do we regular people help you guys out?
Yes, excellent question. First and foremost, pray for Chuck and I, who are, in the Capitol trying to promote these these policies. Pray for our legislators who are helping in the process of getting these policies and bills passed and through into law. So prayers first and foremost. But a great way that you guys can get involved is check out our newsletter that we post. It's just simple at our website, kansascatholic.org. We have a newsletter you can sign up for. And during the legislative session, we send out a weekly newsletter updating week to week of what is happening in the State House, the bills that we are tracking, the bills that we are supporting, or the bills that we are fighting against. And so that's a great way for regular Kansans to stay up to date as to what is happening in the State House and the policy world, is to go to our website, kansascatholic.org, sign up for our newsletters, because those come out weekly, gives great insight. Chuck does a fantastic job putting those together. But also we give out action alerts too. So sometimes when we do have these really important bills that we know are critical to protecting Kansans, to protecting children, and the votes could be, if the votes are, we're not sure, maybe the votes are there or not, is we send out these action alerts, and then it allows you to send an email to your state representative and state senator saying, please support Bill 123, and it will automatically send off to him. Because that's an important thing too, is for the state representatives and state senators to hear from you, the constituents, as to your concerns and your beliefs as well. You guys do have a voice. So participating in those action alerts that we send out, or just on your own reaching out to your state legislators, is really, really important as well.
Can you tell me, because sometimes it seems like, email campaign, great. They probably just hit click delete. Do they actually read those? Is it better, because there's a lot of them out there where you get the pre-filled thing. Hey, if you don't want to write it, just click your name, autofill, submit. And It's pretty easy to do. I've done many of those, but I have often wondered, is it better if they receive something personally from me, written on my own? Do they actually look at all those mass-produced ones? Do you have any insight into that? Maybe not. I don't know.
I have a little bit. Obviously, I can't speak for all the legislators, because each have their own way of how they try to stay organized and respond to their constituents. But yes, personal emails is probably the best. Okay. But they do look and see their email and realize, oh, I just received 200 emails telling me and asking me to support Bill 1, 2, and 3. And so they do take that into consideration when they realize the mass emails that they are getting. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So when they'll get an email that says there are 2,000 people who just signed this petition, so they will actually see something like that. And maybe it doesn't just go into file 13.
Yeah. They don't just file it. They see it and they definitely take note of it. And I have known on certain topics, and it's not even always our topics, but sometimes other topics that they get emailed on, and they start realizing, oh, I have received 2,000 emails all requesting for my support on this. I do need to look into this and make it, maybe consider supporting it or not supporting it, whatever the case may be.
Gotcha. Okay. We have about a minute left here. Is there anything that you're currently working on, or anything else that you wanted to leave us with today?
I think right now we just wrapped up less than a month ago the legislative session. So Chuck and I are trying to catch our breath a little bit, but just start having conversations with people as to what was successful, what we got through, educating individuals like, today on the radio station of what we're doing, and start working on things for next year. Obviously school choice, we didn't get through this year. So we already have meetings scheduled with our Catholic school folks to see how we can better promote that and the policy for next year. So otherwise, it's educating ourselves on the different issues and prepping for the 2026 legislative session.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We've been speaking with Lucrecia Nold. Thank you so very much for your time, for what you do. We will definitely be praying for you. I will make sure that the Kansas Catholic Conference gets put on our Divine Mercy prayer board. And so that that is definitely being held up by prayer. So thank you so very much for your time today.
Oh, you're very welcome. And yeah, and if anybody wants to, like I said, kansascatholicconference.org is our website. You can sign up for our newsletters. And then we are on Facebook, just kansascatholic.com. And you can follow us there and figure out what we're doing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You are listening to Divine Mercy Radio's Spring Care-a-thon. Pray, hope, and don't worry. We just had a great conversation with Lucrecia Nold about the Catholic perspective on policy making. She works for the Kansas Catholic Conference. So please look that up and support everything that they are doing. Help our legislators to understand what is important. And we thank you so very much for listening, for tuning in, and for supporting this station. You're listening to 101.7 KJDM Lindsborg and Salina, 105.7 KMDG Hayes, 88.1 KRTT Great Bend, 88.1 KVDM